You are under arrest for defending your daughter. Hands behind your back.
No, let me go!
I spent Christmas in a jail cell for defending my daughter. The plan I made afterward would have destroyed my entire family. I didn't scream when it happened. That's what bothers me most now, looking back. That I didn't scream, that some part of me, some deep buried animal part, had been waiting for this exact moment my whole life. Like my body knew before my brain did that one day, Marla would go too far. Christmas dinner, red tablecloth, candles flickering, the smell of ham and cinnamon rolls. My mother's best china, the kind she only brings out when she wants everyone to remember how refined we are, how put together. Noelle was fussing in her high chair, 8 months old and teething, drool on her chin, little fists grabbing at everything. I was cutting her food into tinier pieces than necessary because that's what new mothers do. We obsess, we triple check, we turn danger into dust. Marla was across from me, laughing too loud at something our father said. She had that look. You know the one. The look that says she's already 3 glasses deep into the wine, that her words are going to get sharper, that someone's going to bleed before dessert. She always did this. Every holiday, every gathering. She'd drink just enough to make cruelty feel like honesty. Noelle reached for a bread roll and knocked over a glass of water. It spilled toward Marla's plate, and Marla, my sister, my blood, the woman who used to braid my hair when we were kids, stood up, leaned across the table, and slapped my daughter across the face. Not a tap, a slap. Hard enough that Noelle's head snapped to the side. Hard enough that the sound cut through the Christmas music like a gunshot. Hard enough that for a single frozen second, the entire room went silent. Noelle's face crumpled. Her mouth opened. And then the scream came, high, piercing. The kind of sound that lives in a mother's nightmares. I didn't think. I lunged. My fist connected with Marla's jaw before I even registered I'd moved. The impact vibrated up my arm, sharp and satisfying and terrible. She stumbled back, eyes wide, and I hit her again. And again. I felt her teeth crack under my knuckles, felt the hot spray of blood, felt her weight collapse as she fell backward into the china cabinet, porcelain shattering around her like snow. Someone was screaming. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was my mother. The table erupted into chaos, chairs scraping, voices overlapping, hands grabbing at my arms. My father was shouting. My mother was crying. Marla was on the floor, blood pouring from her mouth, hands clutching her face, wailing like I was the monster. And then, Evan's voice, calm, cold. The voice he uses when he's commanding soldiers. Everyone out. He didn't yell. He didn't have to. My husband stood there in his dress uniform, jaw set, eyes like steel, and the entire room obeyed. My parents, my uncle, the cousins. They shuffled out, muttering, throwing me looks like I was something diseased. Marla was still on the floor, sobbing, her face already swelling. Get up, Evan said to her. Not kind, not cruel, just factual. And get out. She stumbled to her feet, spitting blood, mascara running, and pointed at me with a shaking hand. You're insane, she hissed. You're fucking insane. Evan didn't move. You hit an infant. Leave. She left. The house went quiet. I stood there, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding, holding my daughter against my chest. Noelle was still crying, her little cheek red and swollen. And I kissed her head over and over, whispering apologies into her hair like they could undo what just happened. Evan locked the door. Then he turned to me, and for the first time in our 8 years together, I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Pride. You did the right thing, he said. I didn't feel like I had. I felt like I'd just set something on fire that I'd never be able to put out. They called the police. Of course they did. My parents, Marla, all of them, huddled together in some emergency room, while a doctor stitched up her split lip and reset her broken tooth, spinning the story into something unrecognizable. By the time the cops showed up at our door, I was already the villain. Evan answered, stood in the doorway like a wall. My wife defended her infant daughter from an assault, he said, voice flat, unshakable. If you want to arrest someone, arrest the woman who struck a child. But that's not how it works, is it? They arrested me, Christmas night, handcuffs, Miranda rights, Evan's face, carved from stone, promising me he'd fix this. Noel crying in his arms as I was put into the back of a squad car. I didn't cry. I should have. But I didn't. I just stared out the window at the Christmas lights blurring past and thought about how quickly love turns into evidence. The holding cell smelled like piss and bleach. I sat on a metal bench, still in my red sweater, still with Marla's blood dried on my knuckles, and waited. Hours. No one talked to me. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked if Noel was. Okay, that's what got me. Not the cold, not the fear, not the humiliation. The fact that not a single person, not the officers, not my parents, not even the intake nurse, asked if my baby was hurt. Evan posted bail at 2 a.m. I walked out into the freezing December air, and he wrapped his coat around me without a word. We drove home in silence. Noelle was asleep in her crib when we got back, her cheek still faintly pink where Marla's hand had landed. I stood over her crib and watched her breathe, and I made a promise. I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt her again. My phone started buzzing around dawn. Messages, dozens of them, from aunts I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins, family friends, all of them with the same story. Marla said you attacked her for no reason. Your parents are devastated. You've always had anger issues. You need help. I read them all, every single one. Let the words sink in like poison. And then I saw the one that changed everything, from Marla. Greater than, next time I see your daughter, I'll beat her with a belt. I stared at the screen, read it again. The world went very, very quiet. And something inside me, something I didn't know existed, woke up. I stopped crying, stopped defending myself, stopped explaining. I started thinking, if they wanted to paint me as a monster, fine. What would a monster actually do? But I'm not a monster. I'm worse. I'm patient. Evan found me in the kitchen 3 days later, surrounded by notebooks and printed emails. What are you doing? He asked. Research, I said. He looked at the papers, legal documents, old bank statements, photos I'd printed from my parents' computer the last time I'd visited. Rebecca, he said carefully, the way you talk to someone holding a grenade. What is this? I looked up at him. I'm going to destroy them. He didn't tell me to stop. He just nodded and sat down. Here's what most people don't know about revenge. It's not hot. It's not explosive. It's not screaming or breaking things or storming into rooms. Real revenge is cold. It's methodical. It's a spreadsheet. And I'd been preparing for it my whole life without knowing. I grew up in a house where secrets were currency. My parents, successful, polished pillars of the community, ran a private equity firm that bought struggling schools and restructured them. That's the language they used. Restructuring, optimization, efficiency. What it actually meant was gutting budgets, firing teachers, selling off land, and walking away with millions while kids sat in trailers with broken heaters. I knew this because I'd worked in their office during summers in college. I'd filed those documents, smiled at investors, watched my father shake hands with men in expensive suits while whispering about acceptable losses. I'd buried it. Told myself it was just business. Told myself I didn't understand how the world worked. But I understood. I'd just been too afraid to look. Now I looked. I pulled everything, tax filings, emails, contracts, meeting notes I'd scanned years ago and forgotten about. And I found it. A trail. A pattern. $50 million in fraudulent contracts tied to a school district that had suffered a tragic fire. 10 children dead. The school had been cited for electrical problems months before, but my parents' firm had delayed repairs to cut costs. The fire was ruled an accident. But I had emails proving they knew. I had documents showing they'd lobbied to suppress the safety report. I had everything. And that's when I found the other file. It was in my mother's desk. A locked drawer I'd picked open with a hairpin and a childhood of sneaking into places I wasn't supposed to be. Inside, police reports, a coroner's document, witness statements, all about my little brother, Danny. He died when I was 12, fell off a cliff during a summer camp trip. Everyone said it was an accident, that he slipped, that it was tragic but unavoidable. But in that drawer was a statement from a camp counselor, a statement that had been buried. I saw Marla push him. I told the police. They said I was mistaken. And beneath it, a receipt, a payment. $50,000 to the local sheriff's office, dated 2 weeks after Danny died. I sat on the floor of my mother's study, holding that piece of paper, and I felt my entire childhood rewrite itself in real time. They'd paid to cover it up. They'd let Marla kill our brother. And they'd made me believe it was my fault for not watching him close enough. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, put everything in a folder, and walked out of that house. Evan was waiting in the car. "Did you find it?" he asked. I handed him the folder. He read. His jaw tightened. "What do you want to do?" I looked out the window at the house I'd grown up in, the house where my brother died, the house where my parents had built an empire on dead children and covered it in gold leaf and good manners. "I want justice," I said. "Justice," Evan repeated. "Or revenge." I thought about Marla's text, about Noelle's red cheek, about Danny's grave, alone on a hill with a headstone that said beloved son, like that meant anything. "Both," I said. For 3 weeks I imagined it. Every night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I played it out. I imagined going to their annual New Year's Eve party. The one they threw every year for investors and politicians and people who mattered. The one with the masks and champagne and ice sculptures shaped like swans. I imagined putting on a dress, a mask, slipping in through the side door. I imagined finding Marla in one of the private rooms, drunk and laughing, and cornering her. I imagined showing her the documents, watching her face change, watching her lunge at me, fighting her, really fighting her. Not like Christmas, not wild and desperate, calculated. I imagined my fist connecting with her temple, her body hitting the floor, the satisfying thud. I imagined calling my parents in Marla's voice, using her phone. "Come quick, something happened." I imagined them rushing in, finding her unconscious, finding the documents scattered around her. I imagined placing her fingers on the papers, her prints everywhere. I imagined slipping out, calling the police. Anonymous tip, fraud, murder, cover-up. I imagined them being arrested at their own party, in front of everyone they'd spent decades impressing. I imagined the trial, the evidence, the guilty verdict, life in prison. I imagined all of it, every detail, every moment, and it felt so real I could taste it. And then one night I woke up, 2 a.m. Noelle was crying. I got up, went to her room, picked her up. She settled against my chest, warm and small and trusting. And I realized, if I did what I'd been, imagining if I became them, she'd grow up knowing I was capable of that. She'd grow up in the shadow of that choice. And one day she'd have to decide if violence was the answer too. The next morning I told Evan, "I'm not going to hurt them." He looked up from his coffee. "Okay? I'm going to let the truth hurt them." He nodded. "Better." I gathered the documents, every email, every contract, every receipt, every statement. I made copies, organized them. And I walked into the district attorney's office with a box full of evidence and a lawyer Evan had hired. The detective who took my statement was a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a wedding ring she kept twisting. She listened. She read. And then she looked at me. "Why now?" she asked. I showed her the text from Marla, the one about Noelle. The detective's face hardened. "I'll take it from here," she said. They arrested my parents 3 weeks later, at their New Year's Eve party. Bar tour, front of everyone. Fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, manslaughter tied to the fire. And when they searched the house, they found the documents about Danny. Marla was arrested 2 days later. Homicide, covered up by her parents for 20 years. I didn't go to the trial. Evan did. He came home every night and told me what happened. The evidence was overwhelming. The defense tried to paint me as vindictive, as a daughter seeking revenge. But the documents didn't lie. The victims' families testified. The buried witness came forward, and the jury took 4 hours to convict. My parents, life in prison. Marla, 30 years. I was at the park with Noelle when I got the call. Evan's voice, quiet and certain. "It's over." I sat on a bench, watching Noelle chase a pigeon, and I felt, Nothing. Not relief, not satisfaction, just nothing. And then, slowly, something else. Peace. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd just let it go. Moved on. Forgiven. And I think about Noelle, about the kind of world I want her to grow up in. A world where hitting a baby has consequences, where covering up a child's murder has consequences, where $50 million in fraud that killed 10 kids has consequences. And I realize I didn't choose revenge. I chose the truth. And the truth was sharp enough to cut through everything they'd built. That's the scariest part, isn't it? Not what they did, but how close I came to becoming them. How easy it would have been to let rage make me a monster. How simple it would have been to destroy them with my own hands and call it justice. But I didn't. I let their own actions destroy them. And I walked away clean. If you've ever been in that moment, where you have to choose between becoming what hurt you and staying who you are, you know how hard it is. You know how the rage feels like power, how the violence feels like relief. But here's what I learned. The people who hurt you want you to become like them. They want you to prove you're just as bad, because then they win. Even if they lose everything else, they win. I see Noelle sometimes, staring at her hands the way kids do, learning what they can do, what they're capable of. And I think about the moment I hit Marla, how good it felt, how right. And I'm grateful, not that it happened, but that I stopped there, that I chose a different path. My parents wrote me letters from prison. I burned them. Marla tried to call. I blocked her. They don't get to rewrite this. They don't get to make themselves the victims. Not anymore. Christmas came around again. We didn't go anywhere. We stayed home, Evan, me, Noelle. We made cookies, watched old movies, fell asleep on the couch in a pile of blankets. And for the first time in my life, the holidays felt safe. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a box of documents. Sometimes it's a detective who believes you. Sometimes it's a jury that sees the truth. And sometimes it's just choosing not to become the thing that hurt you, even when every part of you is screaming to destroy them. I don't know if this is a happy ending. I don't know if there's such a thing when families break like this. But I know this. Noelle will grow up safe. She'll grow up knowing that when someone hurts her, there are ways to fight back that don't cost your soul. She'll grow up knowing that truth is stronger than rage. And maybe that's enough. I still think about that night sometimes. The one I imagined. The party, the mask, the fight. The version of me who crossed that line. And I wonder who I'd be now if I had. If I'd feel powerful, or empty. If I'd sleep well, or not at all. But I didn't cross it. And that's the point. The scariest part wasn't what they did. It was how close I came to doing it back. How easy it would have been. How right it felt. If you've ever been there, if you've ever held that match and stared at the gasoline, I hope you put it down. I hope you choose the harder path. The one that doesn't make you a hero in the story, just someone who survived without becoming the villain. Because at the end of the day, revenge is easy. Justice is hard. And the difference between the two is the difference between who you are and who you could have been. I look at Noelle now, almost 2 years old, running through the backyard with a red balloon. She doesn't remember that Christmas. Doesn't remember the slap. Doesn't remember the blood or the shouting or the night I spent in a cell. And I'm grateful for that. But I'll remember the moment I chose not to burn the world down. The moment I let the truth do the burning for me. And if that makes me cold, if that makes me calculating, if that makes me something other than the soft, forgiving woman they wanted me to be, good. Because the world doesn't need more soft women who swallow rage until it poisons them. It needs women who know the difference between justice and revenge, and choose justice. Even when it's harder, even when it takes longer, even when no one's watching. So here's my confession. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped protecting them from themselves. And that was enough. Evan says I'm different now. Quieter. Sharper. I don't argue with him. I am different. I used to be afraid of what I was capable of. Now I know. And knowing makes all the difference. They'll get out someday, my parents, maybe even Marla. And when they do, they'll find a world that's moved on without them. A world where their names mean nothing, where their money's gone, where their legacy is 10 dead children and a covered-up murder. And I'll be here, with Noelle, building something better. That's the real revenge, isn't it? Not destruction. Rebuilding, not fire. Growth, not making them suffer, just refusing to let their suffering define you. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Noelle will ask questions someday, if she'll want to know why she doesn't have grandparents, why there are no photos on the wall, why Christmas is just the three of us. And when she does, I'll tell her the truth. Not all of it. Not the parts that would hurt her, but enough. Enough that she knows. Some people will hurt you, and you get to choose how you respond. You get to choose if you become them, or if you become something better. I chose better, and I'll teach her to do the same. So if you've ever been slapped, literally or metaphorically, if you've ever had someone you loved betray you, if you've ever stood at that crossroads between rage and reason, I see you. I know how hard it is. I know how much easier it feels to just break everything. But I'm telling you, the truth is, sharper than any fist. Patience is more powerful than any punch. And choosing not to become them, that's the ultimate victory. I didn't save the world. I didn't even save myself. I just refused to let them take one more thing from me. My humanity, my choice, my daughter's future. And in the end, that was enough. It's spring now. Noelle and I are planting flowers in the backyard. She's digging in the dirt, laughing, covered in mud. Evan's grilling something that smells like summer. And I'm here, present, whole. Not broken by what happened, not defined by what I didn't do, just here. And if that's not poetic justice, if that's not the ultimate revenge, I don't know what is.